Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Veg Grower Podcast. My name's Richard and I want to encourage and inspire you to grow more of your own food in whatever space you have available. And I do this by showing exactly what's been going on in my own allotment, my own kitchen garden here in Littlehampton on the south coast of the United Kingdom. I've been growing my own for over 30 years, but I still learn something new every single day. Now, coming up this week, I have found myself using grow lights more and more in recent years, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that. Down on the allotment, we have actually managed to get down there and just get a lot of those menial, boring tasks done and out the way. But we start off this week in the kitchen garden, where we have had a dry day out in the kitchen garden. So, let's get into it, shall we? Well, I'm here in the kitchen garden and I'm going to share with you what I've been up to this weekend, because we've actually had, although it's been cold, some rather dry weather this weekend, which has meant I've been able to get out into the garden and spend a day doing what I wanted to do. What I was doing is I started at one end of the garden, just worked my way back, clearing away anything that I could see that needed clearing. In particular, I've noticed weeds have started to grow and they needed pulling out and throwing into the compost bin, which is what I was doing, of course, as we went through. Now, it is a good sign to see weeds are starting to grow. It tells me the soil is warming up and starting to spring into life. What I also noticed is that my asparagus has started to show some early shoots as well. Now, for me, that feels very, very early for asparagus to start. But it is there. It is doing what it needs to do. It's starting to spring into life, and we've just got to look after it as best as we can. We'll keep a close eye. I don't think it's going to be any time soon that we can harvest any asparagus, but we're going to keep a close eye on it nonetheless. Now, what I did do is I went to my worm compost bin and I basically removed one of the bins from the worm compost bin and took that compost and laid it around my asparagus bed. This is obviously to add as a bit of a mulch, but it also adds nutrients into that bed as well, which will help look after those plants as they grow. Now, this is a running theme. Over the next few weeks, we're going to be constantly sharing some of our vermicompost from our wormery, as well as compost from our other bins as we go. Now, I have noticed that when I was working in my compost bin, my wormery, there seems to be a rodent living underneath it. Now, I'm not sure if it's a mouse or a rat. I suspect it's probably a mouse. I'll keep a close eye on it nonetheless, but let's hope it's not a rat, because I don't like rats, and what with having chickens here, it's not a good start to the year. Obviously, it means now we have to really look at it and see what we can do to stop, because although wormeries don't generally attract mice or rats, there's obviously something going on that they are attracted to that area for some reason, and I want to keep a close eye and see. In fact, I can see it right now. It's a mouse. Very small mouse. Oh, yeah, beautiful looking thing. Oh, well, that does fill me with confidence now that I've seen it. So that is a rather good sign. There you go. You get these things live on the microphone. Now, one of the other things that I did is that I was growing some leeks and some other vegetables in pots, which were meant to be for a project later this year. This project isn't going ahead now, so I decided rather than letting the beds sit there empty, I would plant up those leeks and those other plants into the beds just to put them into use. Now, I've got to say, in the pots, these leeks have been growing rather strong. They've been doing really, really well, actually. Got some nice, thick leeks on them. But these leeks were actually sown in May. And the idea being that we can harvest them a little bit later this year. We're looking at harvesting them in May by sowing them later. So it looks like it's working. It is looking like it is working. The leeks they're still on the small side, but they're growing strongly. And now they're in the ground, we might see them grow even better. got to say I'm very happy with it, and I think if we do that in the future, we'll continue sowing leeks every single month from January to May. Now, I've also sown some more leek seeds today as it goes as well, making the most of this weather while we can. When I sow leeks, what I do is I get a polystyrene box, I fill that up with multi-purpose compost, and then I just scatter the leek seeds over the top and then give it some dusting with some seed compost over the top just to cover them. And then I place a plastic sheet over the top of the polystyrene box and place it in my greenhouse, give it a good watering every now and then, and eventually those young shoots will start to show themselves. Really easy to grow leeks, especially getting them started off. Once they are grown in that polystyrene box, they will of course go in the ground, but for now we've just got them started, and that's our second box of leeks that we've started this year. We've got January's lot and we've got February's lot. So off to a good start already, off to a good start indeed. Now, of course, our seedlings are constantly under attention at the moment. We've got lots and lots of various seedlings, particularly chilies and peppers at the moment. But my onions that I sown on Boxing Day inside my potting shed, they have really started to grow as well in the last week. They were very, very slow. I've got to say, they've been very, very slow at growing, and I was starting to worry that we weren't going to get any onions. But thankfully now, they really have started to grow quite strongly, and it looks like they're going to produce some good onions. Obviously, we're not going to know for another 7 months, but we're off again to that good start. We're, of course, sowing lots of seeds at the moment, like many of us, but it is still, unless you've got heated propagators or somewhere indoors where you can grow these things, it is still a little bit too early and a little bit too cold. What I do have inside my potting shed, which I find very, very useful to see how cold it is in there, is a little Bluetooth thermometer. I put up inside my shed and I connect it through my phone, and I just have a look and see what is going on. It shows actually for the last 30 days, so you get a rough average of the temperatures as well. Really cheap piece of kit. I'll add a link in the show notes if you are interested in that, but a really good piece of kit, I've got to say, and it's useful, I find, for just seeing how warm that shed is to work out whether we're going to sow any seeds or not. As you know, it's all about keeping an eye on the weather in my eyes and keeping an eye on our temperatures, all of which we're moving towards the right way to get the best possible conditions for growing our veg. Well, that's what's been going on here in the kitchen garden this week. I'm going to head on down to the allotment, but in the meantime, let's find out what's been going on in the supporters club this week. Well, it is that point of the podcast where I ask if you would be good enough to leave a rate and review on your podcast provider. It only takes you a few seconds, but it means well to us. It helps us get found by more people who might also be looking for some inspiration on how to grow more of their own food. It only takes you a few seconds to do, but it really does help us out in a massive way. But added to that, if you also enjoyed this podcast and you want to help keep this podcast running and the work that we do, then please consider becoming a member of the Veg Grower Podcast Supporters Club. Being a member costs just £5 a month, but it gives you access to extra behind-the-scenes podcasts that give you more of an idea what's going on here at the Veg Grower Podcast HQ. But included with your membership, once a month you will also receive through the letterbox our monthly seed pack. And that seed pack contains a collection of seeds that I've carefully chosen to be sown in that very month. You also get a copy of our mini newspaper, which of course gives you instructions on how to sow those seeds, but it also is a bit of a tool, gives you a bit of a to-do list and a few ideas of other seeds that you could sow, as well as the opportunity to make your own notes. It's something that I actually use myself while in the allotment and on the kitchen garden. Now, as an example, over this last week we have been sowing some dill and we have been sowing some cauliflower. They're just two of the seeds that I have sent out this month. If that sounds like something you would be interested in, and we would love to have you there, then please head to the veggrowerpodcast.co.uk. Well, I'm down on the allotment now, and I'm actually inside the greenhouse because once again it is raining. Now, I said last week that I really just wanted to spend a whole day on the allotment, a day of dry weather, and I had been watching the weather forecast all week. And it looked like Friday was going to be a good day to get down the allotment. It looked like it was going to be a dry day. So I've been really looking forward to spending the whole day on the allotment. But then on Thursday, it changed and it said there was going to be a bit of rain. Well, I decided, sod it, I'm still going to go down the allotment and just try and make the best that I can of the day. Now, I had to run a few errands in the morning, which by the time I got down to the allotment, it was already late morning, which really did annoy me a little bit, but these things happen. But I got down here and I cracked on with quite a few tasks. Now, most of these are quite menial tasks. February is a very odd month in the garden, I find. It's a month really of just finishing those winter jobs and starting to get ourselves ready for spring. The thing is, I had no big projects throughout the winter that I usually have. So that meant that a lot of my winter tasks, the pruning, the tidying, had been done. But I did have a few areas that just needed a little bit of tidying up. This is areas where I've been pruning and just left some of the prunings on the floor, including some of those really thick brambles. So I just went around and I collected all those up and threw those into the compost bin. Also did a bit of weeding, again just removing some of those weeds that are starting to show themselves. Now, because I had a bit of time, I decided I was going to spread some more compost in areas that I could. The potato beds, for example, getting those ready as we have been doing. Just top those up, a bit more compost and things like that. It would have been good, of course, to be able to cut the grass, but I think the grass is still just a little bit too wet for my little battery lawn mower to cope with. But I have to say, I did get a lot of work done that has made me really quite happy. However, the rain did start, and trust me, it has been raining quite heavy. So when the rain started, I decided it was time to head inside the greenhouse. Now, I didn't want to lose any of my time on the allotment, and to be fair, the greenhouse is probably one of the first areas that we're going to use, and we're probably going to need it in the next few weeks once it just warms up enough that we feel we can use it. What it's meant is it just made sense to me to get the greenhouse prepared. So I started with just a more of a tidy up. Now, I have to admit, this didn't take me all that long. I did give the greenhouse a good tidy up towards the end of last season, but nothing wrong with just a bit of a brush around to sweep up any broken glass and things like that. We have had some broken glass in this greenhouse over the winter, I discovered. A couple of panes had smashed, which are going to need replacing. And that all needed tidying up, good sweep around, pulled up any weeds, anything like that. Just made sure that it was clean and ready to go for the growing season. Now, after I tidied up, I then finished off with a proper clean and sterilise. So I got myself a bucket of water and added in a biodegradable disinfectant. Now, usually I really don't like to use chemicals, but I felt it was necessary at this time of year. And because of that, I decided if I was going to use anything, it had to be a natural disinfectant, and that's what I have used. And I just went around, I've washed all the glass panels, all the greenhouse frames, the shelves, everything, just giving it a bit of a wash up, bit of a disinfectant, and that has made it rather nice and pleasant inside the greenhouse. Now, this means that this is, of course, Grandad's greenhouse. This is set up for the year ahead and means that hopefully we should be able to get a good start on the year and get things growing. We do, of course, have the other greenhouse, the Sergeant, as I like to call it, which is sitting there waiting to be used. It is not glazed because I have had a lot of difficulties in finding the right size glass to glaze it. But I've got a few ideas on what I'm going to do with that. My idea currently is I'm going to buy some polytunnel plastic and I'm going to cover it in that, making it a cross between a polytunnel and a greenhouse. Now this is a plan at the moment because I think it will work quite well, but it also should be quite cheap, that I should end up actually having a half decent greenhouse ready to go, especially as I said, we're going to be using it in the not too distant future. Of course, that's going to be happening in the future, so all you've got to do is stay tuned on what we're going to be doing in the future with both of these greenhouses. They really are going to start coming into their own from March onwards, so please do keep your ears tuned on what's going on here. Overall, I'm really happy with what I've done today on the allotment. It does feel like I have made my minutes on the allotment count, my hours on the allotment count. And all I really want is just some decent weather so we can really get into the allotment and really get it gone to town. I'm starting to understand now why people don't visit their allotment during the winter, because this year has been the first year I've not had any big projects. All I've been doing is keeping on top of everything, and it feels a bit like I haven't done much on the allotment. I'm quite lucky, of course. I do have a garden at home, and that has meant that I can grow a lot more stuff at home to get us through the winter. But we want to make the most of the allotment nonetheless. We want the allotment to be a very productive space. And it is a productive space, but we want to continue keeping that productivity going throughout the coming years. Right, it is now time to head on back to the podding shed, where I want to talk to you a little bit about grow lights. This is something I've been using more and more of lately. But in the meantime, let's find out what's been going on in the kitchen this week.
Chopping all the veggies, sizzle in the air. Chef's got with the magic, smells are everywhere. Water starts to boil, onions hit the pan. Recipe of the week, let the feast begin. Cooking with Chef Scott, flavors come alive. Tune in every week for a tasty bite.
Now this week in the kitchen, well, we've been preparing for Tuesday because Tuesday is, of course, Shrove Tuesday, but it's also, I believe, the Chinese New Year. So, combining the two together, I decided we're going to be making some crispy vegetable pancakes, packed with leeks, cabbage and carrot, and dressed with some lovely sweet chilli and soy dressing. Absolutely lovely, and you can, of course, find the recipe, but here is how I cooked it. First of all, we made the pancake batter, which basically, like most pancakes, it's flour, eggs and milk in a bowl and mixed until smooth. At the same time, we made the dressing just by simply mixing some soy sauce and sesame oil and mixed it all together. Into the pancake batter, we then folded in a mixture of leek, carrot and cabbage or kale, all of which have been shredded and cut down into thin strips. We've also included some onion with that as well, keeping the mixture, of course, on the runny side. And then we just cooked it like we would cook any pancakes, a hot frying pan over a medium heat with a little oil, and we just spooned in portions of the mixture, flattened slightly, cooked for 3 to 4 minutes on each side until nice and golden crisp. We then put them on a plate and rolled them up, and then over the top we just drizzled over some sweet chili sauce, bit of a soy sauce mix that we spoke of earlier, a bit of honey and even some lemon or orange juice just to taste. And then we served, and they were absolutely delicious, all using vegetables that we have grown ourselves. Go give it a try and let me know how you get on. Now, one thing you often hear me talking about at this time of year is how much that we are lacking in sunlight in order to really grow our young plants. In fact, I make up for it by saying that I have grow lights. This is something that a few years ago I didn't see the point in having. I would just start my plants off a little bit later. But as I've become more and more aware of how much food I need to grow all year round, I've realised that grow lights are really a valuable tool. And a few years ago, I really started investing in just a few cheap grow lights. Now, the thing is, I am on the south coast of the UK, as I've said time and time again. The further north we go, the less day length there is during the winter. And that for me is where grow lights really come into their own. They make up for that lack of day length. They give us good, strong light for our plants to grow. Now, when I first started buying these grow lights, I brought them from IKEA. They were set up as their indoor growing systems, and they were pretty cheap, I'll be honest with you. They got me started. They enabled me to start growing some really strong plants early. And things like our aubergines and chilies that really do need that long growing period has really benefited from growing them. Added to that, also the fact that my windows face either east or west, depending on which side of a house, means that for most of the day, if I had my plants in the windowsill, they wouldn't get much light anyway. So they would become rather leggy, they would become rather weak. However, these grow lights that I originally started with, they are now about 10 years old, and it's safe to say they are starting to get a little bit warm. They are LED lights, and LED lights do only last for so many hours before they start getting a little less bright, shall we say. It's not uncommon, it's just the way that LED lights work. Now, last year, I actually made up for this by buying a cheap set from Amazon. They've done okay, but I'll be honest, they're not the best. But this week, I received a sample grow light to trial. Now, this is a new company who have reached out to me, and they are called oasisgrowlights.com. I've checked them out on their website. They are a very brand new company, just finding their feet, but I think there is a lot of potential in them. The package arrived this week, and what I could tell you is immediately I could tell that these grow lights are going to last a long time. Their entire packaging and the units themselves, the lights themselves, they just feel really solid, pretty heavy actually, but they feel like they are built to last. They are heavy duty. The ones I received are about 50 centimetres long, which is very similar to my existing grow lights, but much thicker, which has really impressed me. Now, immediately after opening the packaging, I wired up the lights to test them, and I can tell you now, the light was very strong, much stronger than my existing grow lights. In fact, my brother and wife were in the kitchen when I wired them up, and they were actually surprised just how bright they really were. Now, something I noticed with these grow lights is they actually have chains attached to them to make the lights higher or lower. And this is something that I feel is often overlooked. Now, I've actually run an experiment this year just before I even knew about these grow lights. And this is where I had some young plants with lights about 10 centimetres above the plants, and another set of young plants with the lights about 60 centimetres above the plants. And what I can tell you is that the plants with the lights that are 60 centimetres above the plants have grown a little bit leggy, where they're stretching to try and reach the light. Whereas the ones with the lights that are much closer, the plants are stockier, stronger plants. And this tells me that the position of the lights make a big difference. We can higher or lower the lights as the plants grow to give them a bit more room, but also achieve the best possible growth. Now, if you are looking for any grow lights at the moment, highly recommend you go and check them out. I'm very impressed with them so far, but I will be trialing these for a bit longer to give my full and final version of them. But for me, grow lights are a worthwhile investment if you do want to grow lots of vegetables from seed all year round. Well, that is it for the podcast for this week. Thank you so much for joining me. If you've enjoyed this podcast, then please rate and review on your podcast provider. Only takes you a few seconds, but it means the world to us. It helps us get found by more people who might also be interested in learning more about how to grow their own food. If you want to help support the work that we do, then please consider becoming a member of the Veg Grower Podcast Supporters Club, which gives you access to extra behind-the-scenes podcasts as well as a monthly seed pack, which includes seeds and tools to help you make your garden more productive. If you want to get in touch, you can of course go to our website, theveggrowerpodcast.co.uk, where you can leave a comment or you can leave a voicemail. You can also email me, richard@theveggrowerpodcast.co.uk. And finally, you can find me on social media. Please do give us a like, a follow, and all that jazz. Well, that'll be it for this week. We will be back again next time. So until then, please take care.